And I know that I'm quite sure that you don't want me reading your whole bio. It is on our website, but if you don't know, he was the chief counsel of OASIS for many years, and now he is in the White House with the Office of National Drug Control Policy. I hope I have that right. And he is doing incredible work to make medication-assisted treatment more easily available, improve recovery supports, and is just a great, great advocate for us to have on our side. So without further ado, Rob Kent. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you, Allison. So can everyone hear me? Wonderful, wonderful. So first, thanks for inviting a New Yorker now living in Virginia back home to speak to my family. I want to start by reading from the book of Brene Brown, From Braving the Wilderness, when she describes the 4 elements of true belonging. And she starts by saying, people are hard to hate close up, move in, speak truth to bullshit, be civil, hold hands with strangers, strong back, soft front, wild heart. Remember these words, because we will not get where we need to get without abiding by these elements and remembering them constantly and stating them if necessary. So I want to first talk about why I have hope. So personally, how can I not have hope when a kid who grew up in a single parent household in Syracuse, New York, in public housing, on welfare and food stamps, who was written off from birth, ends up working for President Joe Biden? I tell you this not just because it gives me hope. I tell you because you should understand what is possible, what motivates me, and that I will never forget where I come from. Now, my hope is based on leadership and action, based on actions, not words. What does leadership from the White House mean? It means giving New York State $200 million in supplemental block grant funds to help the system, in the hopes that another $100 million could be on the way, as the president proposed doubling the block grant in the next fiscal year budget. And so far the House has bought in, but that's actually something you all can work on to make sure it's carried forward. And as I say that though, New York's already received $200 million. I think they've spent about $40 million. They've got 160 sitting there. I think you all should be asking them where it is, when it's coming out, because time's necessary for it to be done now. So hope, leadership, means, as I said, a president doubling the block grant and requiring a 10% set aside be invested in recovery services, which, by the way, is also passed in the House, and we're hopeful that the Senate will agree. It also means, and I hope most of you, if not all of you, saw this, creating a new Office of Recovery at SAMHSA, which is part of HHS. The Assistant Secretary, Marian Delphine Rittman, announced that on the last day of Recovery Month in September. And by the way, just so we're really clear, on the recovery set aside in the new office, that happens when people in recovery are in the, and I'll steal from Lin-Manuel Miranda and Hamilton, are in the room where it happens. I'm incredibly proud that there are leaders at SAMHSA and in my office that are in long-term recovery, and proud of it. And it impacts what happens when people are in the room. So leadership also means making buprenorphine and other medications easier to access. I think many of you know, when we came in, the previous administration had issued a practice guideline to make buprenorphine access easier. It didn't go far enough. We pulled it back to get it right. We got criticized for that, but we made it happen within months. So now it's possible for any DEA registered prescriber to offer buprenorphine up to 30 patients. As many of you know, there's legislation pending in Congress, spearheaded by your great congressman and my former congressman, Paul Tonko, to eliminate that X waiver or requirement. So leadership also means allowing federal funds to be used to buy fentanyl test strips. Previous administration had issued guidance saying you couldn't use federal funds like SOR grants to buy fentanyl test strips because somehow we were better than that. I mean, given what we're seeing, I don't think we're better than anything when we're trying to help somebody stay alive and find their way. Leadership also means investing $30 million in harm reduction services and making harm reduction a priority, as we have done in the policy priorities that we issued on behalf of this administration in April. Leadership means asking Congress to pass the Equal Act, which will eliminate the sentencing disparity between crack cocaine and powder cocaine. There's no more clear manifestation of the war on drugs and how we've treated things differently over the years than that. We came out and support that bill has passed the House. We hope it passes Congress. President will sign it. It's an important, it's not just symbolic, it's realistic. It acknowledges that we got it wrong in the past. And by the way, there is no difference between crack cocaine and powder cocaine. So the myth has been busted. Let's pass the bill, make it a law. So what else? And what else is leadership? It's telling policymakers that we need to end the criminalization of drug use. It tells people viewing every decision from a lens that can see the lack of equity in policy and funding and working to fix it. It means telling states to protect opioid litigation settlement funds and to invest in recovery and harm reduction, and to appoint folks in recovery and families and current service recipients to the Settlement Advisory Board. By the way, whatever folks tell you, you know, there's this old adage, somebody used to tell me that victory has 100 fathers and defeats an orphan. Well, I will speak from my own experience and my own knowledge that I believe the reason the opioid litigation settlement fund law happened in New York State is because of a few folks in recovery and the families who've been impacted. So that is what leadership is from Washington. Now I want to call out a few false narratives that seem to pervade the current conversation about overdoses that we need to correct. First, that the rapid increase in overdose deaths is because of COVID. For context, according to the latest CDC data for the 12-month period ending March 2021, we lost almost 99,000 Americans to overdose. In New York State, you lost more than 5,500. That's a more than 30% increase. So we can't forget that. It's just not true. Overdoses started to increase before COVID. COVID was an accelerant that was thrown on top of an already raging fire of illegal fentanyl. Illegal fentanyl, be clear, I'm not talking about the stuff that's prescribed. Illegal fentanyl has been driving the rapid increase of overdose deaths, not COVID. Did COVID contribute? Absolutely. Second, people do not seek out fentanyl and they do not know that illegal fentanyl is in their drugs. That is not entirely true. People are seeking out fentanyl. We have to treat illegal fentanyl like we do any other substance and acknowledge that people are seeking it out. We also have to acknowledge that it is also being pressed into fake pain pills. It's mixed into other medications. So it's both. It's not either or, it's both. But with COVID, what we really have to understand that the real impact on addiction is that it increased the pain people are feeling at the same time as we restricted access to care. Cannot forget that. So I want to now talk about some things that I've learned along the way that drive me. And I don't, you know, they're words of wisdom. You can throw them out. You can do whatever you want with them. So some of the things I've learned along the way. There will always be folks who will use harmful substances. The substances they use right now are lethal. The difference right now from maybe 20 years ago is when somebody left a program or was asked to leave a program, They wouldn't die when they started to use substances again out on the street. Now, the likelihood is when a couple weeks, you're probably going to read their obituary, if you even still read the obituaries, which I've heard from far too many people is too painful to do any longer. We also have to acknowledge that some folks are just not ready to stop using. When those folks cannot access services or refuse services, they're going to die from an overdose in all likelihood. We need to embrace harm reduction. We need to do everything we can to keep people alive. We are in a war, and it's a ground war, and we're losing it right now. And we need to do everything we can to first and foremost keep people alive. It's like a mass casualty event. We need to keep people alive. And then we need to work with them like we do with every other healthcare situation and help them find their way. But that's just it, their way. Not your way, not my way, their way. We need to be open to helping people. We need to stop criminalizing drug use and possession. We just have to. It is a waste of money, and it's been a tragic waste of life. So some other things I've learned. So some bureaucrats think they can get you to do what they want to do because they are your regulator and or funder, when in reality, they will only get you to do what is needed when they are your partner. I thought we had a great partnership when I was at Oasis. It is essential right now. Some bureaucrats seem to have no sense of urgency and no vision. They stand behind rules or policies. If a rule or policy is in the way, blow it up. There is always a way. You just need to be willing to go there. And I'm just going to say this in all honesty. I say it to people all the time. If you're unwilling to do that, find a different job where people's lives are not at stake. We're losing people every day. If that does not bother you, please move on. Another thing I've learned, you can never care too much. The monetary value of doing something meaningful to help others is incalculable. It is priceless. Other things I've learned, being in the company of others is everything. So it kills me that I'm not there with you in New York and that we're not together. I hope we can rectify that next fall. So I will cross my fingers on that one. Always happy to come home. Another thing, count your blessings. Stop occasionally and take stock. Don't always think about what you didn't achieve. Think about what you did. Have it motivate you, as well as the things that don't go well motivate you. Look in the mirror. You are your best advocate. Another thing, this is a cartoon. I'm sure many of you seen it. It's Snoopy and Charlie Brown sitting at the end of a dock where Charlie Brown says, we only live once. And Snoopy says, wait, wrong. We only die once. We live every day. So live every day, make it matter. Some other things I've learned, and I hope I'm not boring you, but life is too short. You should always care about others. You need to listen to others, especially right now. We can't impose our own beliefs on other people. I've said frequently when I've spoken all over the place, how do you react when somebody tells you the way you need to do things, the way you get better? We need to love each other. We need to tell each other we love each other. We need to be available to others. We need to be ready to help others find their way as many times as it takes. We need to be ready to get in good trouble. And Lord knows I've done my part personally in that end, but that's okay. We need to accept, unfortunately, we're not going to help everyone find their way. And we need to never forget, what is your why? If your why is about you and not about others, please go do something else. And I say this frequently to folks I talk to about recovery, about and with the families. Tell your stories. They are your power. I'm convinced, and you heard what I talked about in terms of leadership from a recovery perspective in Washington, and how we want to have a set aside in the block grant for recovery, and how we want to create an office of recovery, at SAMHSA. Those happen because people in powerful positions tell their stories of recovery, and then advocates like yourselves tell their stories. And I mean people in recovery and their allies, including family members, especially family members who have lost. So please don't ever forget that. So I'm actually going to finish maybe a few minutes ahead, but I'm a lawyer. I will figure out how to drag it out. But many of you have heard me speak before, I'm sure. You know I love and use quotes for motivation. So I want to give you a few. So first, and I know many of you, if not all of you, have heard this one from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Please believe me when I say that, because it's true. I've seen it so frequently. I'm an old guy at this point. I am, I'll be 60 in November. I've been going at this stuff as an attorney for over 30 years. I've seen what's possible. I've been part of things that were impossible that we made possible because we worked together. So you please don't ever give up. Stay together, work hard. Now, a second quote, it's actually really timely. Unfortunately, this year, I'm a Syracuse sports fan. But this last weekend, they honored Floyd Little, who was one of our greatest players. Floyd lost his battle. Excuse me, I'm drying up a little here. Unfortunately, Floyd lost his battle with cancer at the end of 2020. And when that happened, there were a bunch of folks who wrote stories about what a great guy he was and how he was very motivational, and quotes that he used to say. And this one just really struck me. And it was that none of us is anything until the least of us is something. And again, I use these quotes. I carry them in my pocket. I've got a, board. I've got a pile of papers in my front right pocket that I pull out frequently, just to remind me, and to center me and to motivate me. And then I want to also. My third one is from the basketball coach, Jim Valvano. And I'm sure many of you know his speech, know of him. But as he was dying from cancer, everybody probably knows he made this speech at an ESPN event, and everyone focuses in on, his quote at the end where he said, "Never give up, never, ever give up." But during that speech, he also said, to me, there are 3 things everyone should do every day. Number 1 is laugh. Number 2 is think, spend some time in thought. Number 3, you should have your emotions move you to tears. If you laugh, think, and cry, that's a heck of a day. So it's early in the day, but today's already been a heck of a day for me. I want to say, thank you to Angelia and her amazing team, and Allison, for thinking of me and inviting me. Actually, they're really smart. They asked me to do this when I announced that I was moving to Washington to work for President Biden. So take care. Thank you. I love you. Be willing to get into good trouble. Speak truth to bullshit. Move in. I promise to keep doing exactly that. I also promise to never forget where I come from. I hope you will invite me back. Keep doing what you're doing. It's essential right now that we all keep pushing. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rob. And I think at one point you asked if people were bored. The chat was blowing up. I don't know if you got to see it, but so much love coming out for you and the work that you're doing. And, somebody was also asking about, are there peers in your office? And, I can't speak to the whole office, but I do know, like you were talking about, between you and some of the other people that have been appointed, there's so much passion and lived experience there. And I want to say that you're always looking for input. And that's going to lead me to talking about getting more input on our policy survey, which is in the chat. But you're always collecting that input. So we so appreciate
and Allison, I neglected to say, first off, I work for a guy who understands what addiction means. He's a family member. And I think if you want to know about him and what he's like, read the notes that went back and forth between him and Hunter when Hunter was knee deep in his addiction and how he never gave up on him. So that's the kind of guy I work for. And then he puts people around him. I can tell you the first night, so I wasn't on the staff when he was inaugurated first day, but I was invited to the swearing in of the people on the first day. And he talked about that we needed to restore faith with people in this country, that we can do the work for them. And what we've been in the middle of. But I'll just say he's made it possible for people like me and my colleagues, many of whom are in long-term recovery, to push and to do things we've needed to do. I'm too old to not do what I think is the right thing to do, in spite of what it might mean for me. And I'm work with the same kind of people. So keep doing what you're doing. Just trust that we'll be doing what we can at the federal level.
Thank you so much, Rob.
You all have a great conference. Be well. Hope to see many of you in person in the next number of months.
Us too. We're going to get that bus together. Thank you so much, Rob.
All right. Be well.
Take care. Have a great day.